Banned Item 1. Illegal stick curvature. Back in the 1960s, hockey saw a game-changing innovation when Bobby Hull and a few other creative players started heating their stick blades over stoves and bending them into wild, banana-like curves that defied everything traditional about the sport. These extreme curves, sometimes reaching ridiculous angles of over 2 inches, made shots so unpredictable and devastatingly powerful that even the most skilled goalies struggled desperately to keep up with the chaos. The puck would dip suddenly, rise unexpectedly, and swerve in nauseating ways that made stopping it feel almost impossible, turning every shot into a terrifying guessing game. Hull's blade was so dramatically curved it looked like a question mark had been carved out of wood, and his slap shots became legendary for their ability to change direction mid-flight. Because of this revolutionary but dangerous development, the NHL stepped in decisively and set a strict limit on stick curvature, no more than 3/4 of an inch, to keep the game fair, competitive, and goalies significantly safer from unpredictable projectiles. While goalie masks had already started becoming common in the late 1950s due to increasingly frequent facial injuries, the sudden rise of these wicked, physics-defying shots only reinforced the urgent need for better protection and stricter equipment regulations. Today, those wild, banana-shaped curves are completely a thing of the past, relegated to hockey history books and old highlight reels. The NHL strictly enforces the curvature limit with regular equipment checks to balance offensive skill and defensive safety, ensuring the game stays exciting and competitive but fundamentally fair for everyone involved. Banned Item 2. Jersey tucking. Remember when Wayne Gretzky made tucking his jersey into his hockey pants a signature look that became as iconic as his incredible playing style? It caught on incredibly fast, with kids in minor leagues and seasoned pros alike copying the distinctive style, turning it into a widespread fashion statement across hockey rinks everywhere. But as popular and stylish as it was among players and fans, the NHL had to step in around 2013 and make jersey tucking an official delay of game penalty, much to many players' disappointment. Why such a seemingly harsh rule? Because tucked jerseys made it frustratingly hard for referees to properly see players' equipment specifications and jersey numbers, which are absolutely crucial for thorough safety checks and accurate officiating during fast-paced games. Some determined players even went to creative extremes, secretly sewing their jerseys directly to their pants or using industrial-strength tape and Velcro to maintain that coveted tucked look without technically getting penalized by sharp-eyed referees. Alex Ovechkin wasn't at all a fan of the restrictive rule, publicly calling it completely stupid and arguing that it unnecessarily took away a significant bit of individual player personality and self-expression from an already heavily regulated sport. Still, with today's increasingly strict uniform rules focused primarily on visibility, safety, and standardization, the classic tucked jersey look is now officially and permanently off limits across all professional levels. Banned Item 3. Helmet removal before fights. Fighting has long been an integral and controversial part of hockey's deeply rooted culture, and players like the legendary Rob Ray became absolutely famous for dramatically ripping off their helmets with theatrical flair before throwing devastating punches in heated confrontations. But as medical awareness of serious brain injuries grew significantly throughout the sport, the NHL responsibly introduced a mandatory 2-minute penalty for any helmet removal during fights, prioritizing player safety over dramatic tradition. Determined players tried desperately to keep the beloved tradition alive by strategically loosening chin straps beforehand, or even removing opponents' helmets during scrums to cleverly avoid the automatic penalties. However, mounting medical research made it crystal clear that fighting without protective helmets significantly increases the dangerous risk of severe concussions, skull fractures, and other life-threatening head injuries that could end careers permanently. While fighting with bulky helmets on might feel considerably less intense and authentic to old-school players and traditionalist fans, it's become a completely necessary safety measure in modern professional hockey. The so-called Rob Ray rule remains firmly in place today, actively protecting players' long-term health in a game that's becoming increasingly fast, brutally physical, and fiercely competitive at every level. Banned Item 4. Playing without a helmet back in the tough, unforgiving early days of professional hockey, many proud old-school NHL players genuinely thought helmets were strictly for wimps and weaklings, boldly skating around with completely bare heads despite the obvious and mounting risks of serious injury. But as the game evolved and got significantly faster, with shots regularly flying at terrifying speeds of over 100 miles per hour, devastating skull injuries and concussions became alarmingly common throughout the league, forcing officials to take decisive action. The NHL finally stepped in responsibly and made protective helmets absolutely mandatory for all new players starting in 1979, marking a crucial turning point in player safety standards. Veterans who had already signed binding contracts before the groundbreaking rule was implemented were grandfathered in and legally allowed to keep playing without helmets if they willingly signed comprehensive liability waivers accepting full responsibility for potential injuries. Craig McTavish was notably the very last player to take full advantage of this dangerous exemption, courageously skating completely helmetless until he finally retired in 1997 after an impressive 17-season career filled with countless close calls. His concerned teammates even nicknamed him Mac T the Target because he consistently took so many brutal hits directly to his unprotected head, making everyone nervous during every shift. While traditional helmets initially felt bulky, uncomfortable, and restrictive to many stubborn players, going without one left them dangerously exposed to potentially serious brain injuries that could have devastating long-term consequences. Today, with advanced modern helmet designs and a much greater scientific understanding of concussion risks and prevention, absolutely no one in the NHL plays without proper head protection anymore. This critical safety rule remains firmly and permanently in place to protect players' health, careers, and future quality of life. Banned Item 5. Broken stick usage. Imagine swinging around a stick that snapped completely in half during intense gameplay. Those jagged, splintered edges can be absolutely deadly weapons on the ice, turning innocent hockey equipment into dangerous hazards. That's exactly why the NHL made it an immediate, non-negotiable penalty to continue using a broken stick during active play, prioritizing player safety over competitive advantage. Players used to stubbornly hold on to their busted sticks with fierce determination, even desperately trying to tape them back together mid-game with whatever materials they could find to avoid the inconvenience of skating all the way back to the bench for a replacement. But broken sticks with razor-sharp splinters and exposed wooden fragments were causing increasingly serious injuries during heated scrums and intense battles along the boards, leaving players with cuts, puncture wounds, and worse. Although dropping your stick immediately meant missing several crucial seconds of play to grab a fresh replacement, it was infinitely safer than risking turning yourself into a walking hazard, wielding what was essentially a wooden dagger with unpredictable sharp edges. Goalies especially can't just casually skate off the ice for new sticks during crucial moments, so dedicated teammates often slide emergency replacements across the ice like a specialized hockey delivery service racing against time. With today's advanced composite sticks that tend to shatter completely rather than splinter into dangerous fragments, the broken stick penalty continues to keep the game significantly safer for everyone involved, preventing countless potential injuries. Banned Item 6. Oversized goalie equipment. Goalies once took the concept of blocking the net to an absolutely ridiculous new level by wearing protective pads so incredibly huge and bulky they looked like walking mattresses that had somehow learned to skate. Some chest protectors were so massively oversized and comically large, goalies frequently joked that they genuinely needed assistance from teammates just to squeeze through standard doorways and navigate tight spaces. This enormous, boundary-pushing gear made scoring goals nearly impossible for even the most skilled shooters, creating widespread frustration among players, coaches, and fans alike who wanted to see more offensive excitement. The NHL eventually cracked down hard with strict, precisely measured size limits on all goalie equipment, implementing detailed measuring procedures and conducting regular, thorough inspections of gear, almost like implementing airport security protocols specifically designed for hockey players and their equipment. Garth Snow became particularly infamous throughout the league for his ridiculously oversized gear, with endless jokes flying around that he was secretly smuggling furniture, mattresses, or entire sofas onto the ice hidden within his protective padding. Today, goalies wear carefully regulated gear that strikes a much better balance between essential protection and necessary mobility, keeping the game exciting, fast-paced, and fundamentally fair for both offense and defense. The oversized equipment ban remains firmly in place to ensure that shooters have a reasonable, fair chance to score goals, and fans get to witness the offensive excitement they pay to see. Banned Item 7. Illegal stick measurements. The NHL cracked down decisively on sticks that didn't meet official size regulations when clever players started systematically customizing their gear to gain significant unfair advantages over their opponents. Some specially modified sticks were dangerously too long, excessively too wide, or featured completely illegal curves that gave players extraordinary extra reach, dramatically better shots, and superior puck control that no regulation stick could possibly match or compete with. To stop this growing epidemic of cheating, the league began conducting surprise stick measurements during live games, operating kind of like specialized hockey police raids that could happen at any moment. Desperate players even tried various tactics to block referees' direct views during these official checks, hoping to cleverly hide their illegal, modified sticks from detection. One of the most famous and game-changing incidents was Marty McSorley's illegal stick discovery in the dramatic 1993 Stanley Cup Finals. With less than 2 crucial minutes remaining in the game, Montreal's sharp-eyed coach strategically called for an official measurement that would change hockey history. The stick was definitively ruled illegal, resulting in a costly penalty for Los Angeles at the worst possible moment. Montreal capitalized by scoring on the ensuing power play to tie the game dramatically, and went on to win in thrilling overtime, potentially changing the entire series outcome. Today, with strict equipment monitoring systems and instant video reviews available to officials, sneaking illegal sticks past vigilant officials is virtually impossible and extremely risky. The NHL still aggressively enforces these comprehensive rules to keep the game completely fair, balanced, and free from equipment-based advantages. Banned Item 8, Third Man, in fighting hockey fights have always been intensely physical and emotionally charged, but when entire benches emptied simultaneously and individual fights escalated into massive, uncontrollable brawls involving dozens of players, the NHL absolutely had to step in with decisive action. The league banned the dangerous third man in rule, specifically targeting players who recklessly pile into an ongoing fight because it consistently turned competitive games into chaotic war zones that resembled street fights more than professional sports. These enormous, out-of-control brawls, sometimes involving 20 or more players throwing punches simultaneously, often looked significantly more like violent bar fights than organized hockey games, damaging the sport's reputation. The NHL now hands out automatic ejections, lengthy suspensions, and hefty financial fines to anyone who jumps aggressively into a fight that's already underway, sending a clear message about acceptable behavior. A classic, unforgettable example is the legendary brawl in Hockeytown between Detroit and Colorado, where an astounding 9 separate fights broke out in one single game, including goalies Patrick Waugh and Mike Vernon memorably trading punches in an unprecedented display of hockey chaos that made headlines worldwide. With today's increased focus on skill, sportsmanship, and professional behavior, the third man in rule effectively keeps hockey fights controlled, contained, and the game's overall reputation intact while still allowing traditional one-on-one fighting culture to continue. Banned Item 9, use of unauthorized equipment. In the cost-conscious past, some budget-minded players tried to save significant money by wearing fake or completely unauthorized gear, cheap knockoff helmets and protective pads that looked convincingly real from a distance but offered virtually little to no actual protection during impacts. This was extremely dangerous as these counterfeit items could crack, break, or completely fail easily under normal game conditions, leaving unsuspecting players completely vulnerable to serious injuries they thought they were protected against. The NHL now requires all equipment to display official certification stickers and approval markings, and dedicated equipment managers meticulously check every single piece before players are allowed to hit the ice for games or practices. Wearing any unauthorized gear is now strictly banned and heavily penalized to protect players from serious injuries that could end careers or cause permanent damage. Some legendary stories even tell of desperately cheap players wearing plastic toy helmets hastily painted to look real, an incredibly risky gamble that put lives in danger and has been completely outlawed for decades. These horror stories serve as reminders of why strict equipment standards exist and must be enforced without exception. Banned Item 10, mandatory visor violations. Before the landmark 2013 safety rule change, many tough NHL players stubbornly chose to skate without protective visors, mistakenly thinking that face protection made them look significantly less tough or intimidating to opponents and fans. But with more and more players suffering devastating eye injuries and serious facial fractures that threatened their careers, the league responsibly made visors absolutely mandatory for all new players entering the NHL starting that pivotal year. Veteran players were graciously grandfathered in and allowed to continue playing without visors if they chose, but rookies and new players caught without proper visors now face immediate penalties and potential ejection from games. Manny Malhotra's career nearly ended tragically after a flying puck shattered his eye socket in a horrific injury, dramatically highlighting the critical importance of visors for protecting players' vision and faces. Though some traditional players still complain about occasional fogging issues or slightly limited peripheral vision, visors are absolutely essential for protecting players from potentially devastating facial injuries that could blind them or end their careers permanently. The mandatory visor rule represents the league's commitment to player safety over outdated notions of toughness. Banned Item 11, dangerous equipment tape. Players used to get creative with tape, wrapping it around sticks and gear to change their shape or add sharp edges. Some even built up stick curves with layers of tape or created razor-sharp points on their equipment, turning sticks into medieval weapons. The NHL cracked down on this, banning any tape that alters equipment beyond factory specs. Officials now inspect tape jobs closely to prevent dangerous modifications. While tape is still used to improve grip and durability, turning it into a weapon is a serious violation that can lead to penalties. Players once tried to turn their protective gear into custom death traps by drilling holes, cutting padding, and stripping down equipment to make it lighter or cooler. While these DIY experiments might have felt smart, the NHL quickly banned any gear that didn't match the original factory design. Some players removed so much foam padding that their gear looked like empty shells, offering almost no protection when pucks and sticks flew around. Sure, original equipment could be heavy and hot, but these altered pieces simply failed to keep players safe. Now, equipment inspectors treat any modified gear like contraband, confiscating anything that's been tampered with. With today's strict safety certifications and liability concerns, no one's risking their health with homemade protection anymore. Equipment modifications are banned for good.
Banned item 15. Illegal helmet modifications. Some players treated their helmets like arts and crafts projects, cutting ventilation holes, removing padding, or altering chin straps to make them lighter or more stylish. But these customizations turned helmets into dangerous liabilities. Modified helmets lost structural integrity and could shatter on impact, leaving players exposed to serious head injuries. Some helmets looked like Swiss cheese, with so many holes they offered almost no protection. The NHL now treats any helmet modifications as serious safety violations. Players can be removed from games until they wear proper, unaltered helmets. Thanks to concussion research and lawsuits, no one's risking brain injuries with altered helmets anymore. Illegal helmet modifications remain banned forever.